That Washington football team is really fucking good.
Everything we do is going to be about winning. Okay, we're going to learn to do things the right way, and that's the only way we're going to do them. Because if it doesn't help us, we're not doing it, man. That's just as simple as it gets. Win the Super Bowl. That's I mean it, too. You know, one of the things that the only reason you become a head coach in this league, in my opinion, is to win. That's it. That's the bottom line. If you do it for any other reason, you're wrong.
Hey, Washington football fans, welcome back. Going into this season, I was firmly in the camp of giving Taylor Heinecke a shot at the starting quarterback job. Just to see what he had to offer, you know, on the slim chance that he could end up being this generation's Kurt Warner. And when Fitzpatrick was named the starter, I was a little disappointed. But I hoped that he could be for us what Brad Johnson was for the legendary 2002 Buccaneers team. Sadly, that was under the expectation that our defense was going to take a step forward, you know, with some key additions and be that type of legendary squad. We all know how that turned out. Fitz is out. The defense was struggling all year. But Taylor Heinecke, you know, he's gotten a chance. The chance that a lot of us felt he deserved. And boy, has it been a roller coaster. He's shown all the tenacity and gameness that flashed in the Buccaneers game last year, and a lot more. But we've also got to see his limitations. Even now, on a 2-game win streak, playing the best football of his career, I think it's sadly apparent that Taylor just doesn't have some of the traits that you need to be an elite franchise quarterback. Some people might disagree. Some people might even, you know, want the rest of the season to judge. But I think, you know, he would need to show a near Drew Brees level of timing, decision-making, and accuracy to have any faith that he could overcome his arm strength limitations and some of his decision-making, and not just, you know, be a starter, but give us a reason to believe that he could be an elite quarterback. You know, those might sound like unrealistic expectations, but it's where I think we need to be in our team building phase. I don't want to get rid of, you know, Heineke. I actually desperately want to keep him as a backup, you know, that we know he's capable of coming in, winning games against tough opponents. You know, if our future franchise guy goes down. In my roadmap video and some other videos, I've talked about how I think Marcus Mariota and Mitch Trubisky have more elite traits. And they present an opportunity to bring relatively young, high potential quarterbacks. Both these guys are younger than Taylor Heinecke, that also fit this offense very well. And we could bring them in at a very low price, you know, for the fact that they could be a franchise quarterback for. I still think we need to pick one of them up, at least as a bridge for next season, while we develop a quarterback from the 2022 draft. And with how the season's played out, I've come to 3 choices I think have the most potential, along with, being the best fit for Scott Turner's offense. I know a lot of people will argue that you need to take a guy with the most high-end physical potential and build your offense around him and what he excels at. But I think while these 3 might be slightly less physically gifted in certain areas, they're still at or above NFL caliber as far as, the physicality area goes, and considerably ahead in reading, processing, execution, and command of the offense, and the quarterback position in general, than a lot of other high-end physical prospects. Given that they're all NFL level athletes to different degrees, these players, the mix of still impressive athleticism, better comprehension for the position, and execution, put them ahead of the quarterbacks that went into the season with all the hype. Going into the season, just like everybody else, I had my eyes on Malik Willis, Sam Howell, Carson Strong, Matt Corral. We were all looking at these guys. 3 or 4 players with some very impressive physical traits. And we were all hoping to see them take a big step up developmentally. But sadly, in my opinion, and many other people's opinions, they've been very disappointing given their level of competition. Sam Howell actually being the least disappointing given his situation. He has nothing to work with, and he's going out there and trying to carry the team. But in my opinion, he's still not worthy of a high first round pick. Maybe not even a first round pick at all. I know that sounds harsh, but enough build up and background. Let's get on to the actual prospects here. Last year in a crowded class of can't miss quarterback prospects, I wrote off these guys that we're going to talk about, for different reasons. But since then, they've all taken huge steps forward and impressed me in ways that none of the high potential guys have been able to. I'm going to start off with a guy who's been getting some Joe Burrow comps, and for good reason. He's had a very Joe Burrow-esque rise to being, in my opinion, a first round prospect. And in my opinion, a guy that probably deserves to be taken as the first quarterback in this draft. Would he go number 1 overall like Burrow? I can't say. But that guy is Kenny Pickett, super senior. He used that extra year of eligibility to come back and prove himself. This guy was like a third, fourth round projection for last year with that quarterback class. And, that's what he looked like last year. But 6'3", 220 pounds from Pitt. This season, he's got 3,857 yards, 67.1 completion percentage, 36 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, 9.5 yards an attempt, 13.49 yards of completion. On top of that, he had 217 rushing yards with 4 rushing touchdowns. He had a 168.3 passer rating and 81.8 quarterback rating and a 93.3 PFF grade. To put that grade in perspective, Burrows had a 94.9 and Mac Jones had a 95.5. I believe they're the highest quarterback grading in the like coming out for a senior year or draft eligible year. Any quarterback in the PFF era. That's what they did in their senior year. And I know the PFF grading system tries to remove as many variables as possible to get the best representation of an individual's actual play and ability. But it's hard to believe that Burrow and Mac Jones' situation didn't provide them, at the very least, the confidence, if not flat out opportunity in most situations, to perform at least slightly better, because the players they were working with. Now, with Kenny Pickett's case, I doubt any of his offensive linemen or offensive weapons go inside of the first 3 rounds. We're talking about getting to day 3 before any of his teammates come off the board. Joe Burrow, on the other hand, had a Joe Moore award-winning offensive line. That's an award given every year for the best overall unit of offensive linemen in college football. And along with that, he had first-rounder Justin Jefferson, 5th overall pick Jamar Chase, 2nd-round wide receiver Terrence Marshall Jr., and 1st-round running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire. On the other side, Mac Jones also had a Joe Moore award-winning offensive line that had 1st-round pick Alex Leatherwood, one of the first picks in the 2nd round, Landon Dickerson, a center, and probable top 10, if not top 5, pick this year, offensive tackle Evan Neal. On top of that, he had 2 top 10 pick wide receivers. Jalen Waddle was the 6th overall, and Devontae Smith at 10th. Then he also had 1st-round running back Najee Harris. And then guys coming out this year that'll probably go in the first 2 rounds, and John Mechie and tight end Jaleel Billingsley. Not to mention the comfort level these guys had playing opposite, the star-studded defenses they had to fall back on. Having a good defense really takes a lot of pressure off the quarterback and can really help him play, more comfortably. Not to mention all these weapons they had compared to poor Kenny Pickett. Pickett came out this year and played out of his mind with none of this propping him up. And he knocked on the door of the best graded quarterbacks in the PFF era, carrying the team on his back. He just understands the game and processes at a high-end pro quarterback level right now. It just clicked for him. I think he might be the one guy in this draft that could come in day 1 and elevate an NFL offense. Athletically, I think he stacks up to Derek Carr, arm strength-wise, and maybe a bit more mobility, which is, top 10 caliber for an NFL quarterback. And he's got all the mental faculties that have led to Burrow and Jones to step in and command NFL teams right out the gate. He also has, a little splash of that gameness we see in Taylor Heinecke. Pickett makes plays out of sheer grit and determination sometimes. Because like I said, he's not working with much. He just wills yardage into existence like he had the Infinity Gauntlet on sometime. It really can't be said enough that Pickett is doing more with less than any quarterback in college right now. I think his traits are going to very easily translate to the NFL, where if he's given solid protection and some quality weapons and play calling like he would, he would have with us, I think he will perform at an elite level, a level even higher than what he's performing now, because he doesn't have any of that to fall back on. I think Pickett might be the best overall quarterback in this class. I still don't think he's the best option for us. But if we absolutely have to pick a quarterback in the first round, Pickett is, in my opinion, the only one worthy of that pick. I know there's been some arguments out there, some scouts suggesting otherwise, maybe even laughing at the idea of the Joe Burrow comparison, but you have to look at what he's had around him and what he's been able to do. Some of the things he's been knocked for are definitely a result of just not having a team around him. And I just want to stand up for Kenny Pickett here. I think he's the best pro-ready quarterback prospect in this draft. But I want to move on to the opposite end of the spectrum before I talk about, who I think would be the perfect quarterback for us. I want to go to the opposite end and talk about a quarterback that's not getting any buzz that I think that we could get at the beginning of day 3. And I think he still has the potential to be our franchise quarterback with a season or two of development. And that quarterback is Hendon Hooker, Sr. from Tennessee. After 3 seasons with Virginia Tech, this 6'4", 220-pound quarterback transferred to Tennessee, and he took a big step up as a passer. He has 2,411 yards, a 70% completion rate. He had 23 touchdowns and 3 interceptions with a 9.95 yards per attempt, 14.24 yards per completion, along with 486 rushing yards, 5 rushing TDs, and this was all across only 9 starts. He played in 11 games, but he only got 9 starts. So he's put up decent numbers for the amount of actual field time he's had. He's the second most efficient passer in this draft class, 4th most overall in college football, with a 183.4 passer rating. He has a 78.5 QBR, and he also has the highest passer rating under pressure in all of college football with a 130.9. Like, this is a guy that just gets it done even in the face of adversity. The next closest guy to him is, the Heisman favorite, Bryce Young, down at a 119. Like, he's considerably higher than the Heisman runner when it's under pressure. That was a stat that everybody made a big to-do about Herbert playing with this past year. This guy is performing like that in college. Hooker has good speed and shake as a runner. I wouldn't say it's elite like Lamar Jackson or anything, but when you combine the speed and shake he does have with his strength and contact balance, it makes him dangerous with the ball in his hands. It also helps that size and strength he has also helps him shrug off would-be sacks, making him even more effective at beating pressure. He has more than enough arm to zip it, and zip to be, an NFL quarterback and get the ball anywhere on the field, and even though his mechanics are pretty good, and he has a really quick delivery, I think he could actually refine them a little more and pick up even more power on his passing. Some of the other prospects might have more impressive physical traits, but his blend of size, ability to carry, along with his quick processing and ability to accurately get the ball out under pressure, makes him a far better prospect than a lot of these guys, in my opinion. And this is a guy that is getting no hype and is going to go to day 3. Now, Desmond Ritter is the quarterback with a lot of buzz that I think stacks up very closely to Hendon Hooker, from a physical standpoint. Hooker is just far better at actually playing QB as far as the processing and accuracy go, which in my opinion is way more important. They're similar athletes running the ball. Actually, I think Hooker has the edge there, but Desmond Ritter just has a bigger arm. But everything else, Hendon Hooker, 100%. The fact that, like I said, we could possibly get this guy in the 4th or 5th round, and he could realistically become our franchise quarterback, would be the best draft value since Kirk Cousins in the 4th back in 2012. Hopefully by the time his rookie deal is up, we don't botch this contract. But I really like the idea of getting Hendon Hooker late with a guy like Marcus Mariota in free agency, letting him set a season or two, and then I think this guy could be the future for us. But finally, my pick for the perfect franchise quarterback prospect for us in the 2022 draft, and in my opinion, the best fit for our offense, along with just being my favorite quarterback in this draft period, Grayson McCall. Redshirt sophomore, Coastal Carolina. This guy is 6'3", 210. That's exactly Derek Carr's size. He's got 2,382 yards this season with a 74.2 completion percentage. He's got 22 touchdowns to 2 interceptions. He had a 12.81 yards per attempt and a 17.26 yards per completion. He's got 191 yards rushing with 3 rushing TDs, but that really doesn't show off like how good he actually is at running. The stats might sound a little more pedestrian. And he is the most efficient passer in college football with a 218.6 passer rating, 83.7 QBR, and a 92.9 PFF grade on the season. Last season, his PFF grade was a 92.5 in comparison to the 92.9, and he had a QBR of 82.2. So that shows he has gotten marginally better, but been consistently good. Last season saw him lead his team, Coastal Carolina, through an undefeated regular season where he beat Zach Wilson's BYU before losing the FBC Mortgage Cure Bowl to Malik Willis's Liberty by an overtime field goal. In that game, Grayson threw 318 yards for 3 touchdowns and 1 interception while rushing for a touchdown. While Malik Willis, on the other hand, who's getting all kinds of first-round hype, threw for 220 yards with 2 interceptions, no touchdowns, but 4 rushing TDs. So they ended up with the same amount of touchdowns, but Malik Willis did it as a running back. Maybe a wildcat quarterback. It wasn't impressive as a quarterback. In 2020, Grayson was the only starting quarterback to throw 0 interceptions from a clean pocket, where he also threw 24 touchdowns. So when he's clean, he's perfect. He went 26-3 touchdowns to interceptions overall last season. And with all that, he has an NFL arm that can zip into tight windows. He can drive it deep down the field or across to the far hatches. He has the ability to make plays with his legs, scrambling or designed runs with solid speed, nice cuts, agility. He's got good contact balance while being stout enough to stand up to contact, break tackles, fight for yards. He's a dual threat quarterback. Last season, I wrote Grayson off as a complete gimmick. He was the mullet rocking gambler's best friend that always beat the spread in a gimmicky shotgun pistol spread RPO triple option offense. Or so I thought. He turned out to be the most efficient passer in college football that had complete command of a very complex, modern football offense as a redshirt freshman. And he mastered it even further as a redshirt sophomore. An offense, by the way, that basically has all the new school, highly effective stuff that Scott Turner gets complimented on. Pre-snap motion, RPO, sweeps from the shotgun and the pistol, all the stuff that requires a quarterback to quickly process and make the right decision, the stuff that turns defenses inside out for big gains when done right. It's the kind of stuff that Scott Turner's dialing up about 30% of the game, mixed in with mindless handoffs from under center and drop backs that just make it easier on the quarterback. But Grayson McCall, this kid is running that 30% of high-end stuff the whole time, with the added wrinkle of timing the triple option toss, along with it. This season, it looks like Coastal Carolina's coach Jamie Caldwell has really opened up the passing options more, instead of just giving him one read type of stuff. We didn't even have that last year, but you're just giving him more options in his progression. And you can see how quickly Grayson is going through multiple reads and getting the ball out lightning fast. His processing is probably the most impressive thing, the thing that really won me over to him this season. He's throwing with anticipation, leading the receivers with great ball placement accuracy, getting the ball out way before they're out of their breaks and leading them to big yards. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that's leading, to the kind of efficiency he's having with all these touchdowns and yards with very few passing attempts. And most of these passing attempts are being completed because of all these things he's doing. It shows up in the stats, and you can see he's very nearly always making the right read and putting the ball where it needs to be. I think he's one of the most underrated quarterback prospects since Russell Wilson. I'm not saying he's going to be Russell Wilson, but everyone knew Russ was a hell of a quarterback prospect. But his size and his school and his transfer made him fall. Grayson has good size, good tools, and he's shown it all out there on the field. But being from a small group of 5 and not a Power 5 school, along with an offense that he plays in being vastly different than all but about 3 NFL teams, including us, thankfully, there are going to be a lot of questions. But it's really lucky for us, I think, like all that considered, it's really lucky for us. We're one of the 3 teams he fits perfectly with. And yeah, he just fits perfectly with Scott, with what Scott wants to be able to do more of in this offense. And not many other teams are going to have that same interest. Even, with that niche, I think his stat line and his cult following will make him a day 2, possibly a 3rd rounder in the draft. So we can get a great value on him, but I still think we need to commit to a 2nd or 3rd round pick on him. We should target him heavily. I think bringing Mariota in as a bridge and drafting McCall would be the best for keeping us competitive until McCall catches up to the speed of the NFL. If I was running the draft board, McCall would be my top quarterback target. Like I said, not only does he have all the skills and tools, but he also has the advanced processing and comfort with the concepts in Turner's offense. I think he's a perfect fit that could be had at a value that would have drafters, whoever drafted him, talked about as geniuses for a while to come, especially when being able to put him into a situation like ours where he would fit and excel. I think getting a perfect fit instead of a long shot upside guy, lets you use your earlier picks to land blue chip talent at other positions of need, like maybe offensive line. There's like Evan Neal's out there, there's a Kemikwanu's out there, or linebackers, and there's Nakobe Dean's, Brandon Smith's, free safeties. I don't think we're going to have a shot at Kyle Hamilton because we've won too many games now, but this is a great safety class, top to bottom. Great. You got Jordan Battles, you got Jalen Catalans, Nick Crosses, or cornerbacks. You got Sauce Gardner, you got Roger McCreary that fits ours very well. You got Jermaine Waller. It'll probably be like a 3rd rounder, maybe a 2nd rounder, but it lets you get those blue chip type players in those other positions and still landing a guy that will be, our franchise quarterback. Now, I've heard PFF and Ed Oliver, shout out to Ed Oliver out there, mention the idea of double dipping in this class for quarterbacks, which it's already a weak class, but doing that like we did in 2012, I would be all for that in the situation of taking a McCall day 2 or 3. Day 2, and then coming back on day 3 and getting Hooker. I am not for spending a high 1st rounder on what is usually presumed to be your franchise quarterback, and then possibly causing doubt to the 1st pick, and leading to it being wasted. Like it's been the case several times in our franchise history, in my lifetime. It just kind of stands out. Like Heath Schuler and Gus Frerotte. We took Heath Schuler in the 1st round, and then came back in the 7th or something and got Gus Frerotte. He was just kind of always looking over his shoulder, and Keith Shula never got comfortable. And then Steve Spurrier, drafting Patrick Ramsey in the 1st round, but then signing his boy from Florida, Danny Werfer, in free agency to be standing over Ramsey's shoulders. And, it led to just the ruination of these, prospects, these promising prospects. Shanahan with RG3. Instead of letting RG3, maybe get healthy, he kind of just pushed him because he wanted to jump to his guy, Kirk Cousins. He liked Cousins better. He was forced to take RG3. He double dipped and then put RG3 in a bad situation. For us, I just think that it never ends well. It never ends with it being like a competition that drives the more valuable pick to be better, but it ends up being more of a confidence destroyer that ruins a valuable prospect, and it's a reason to quickly give up on a very expensive resource. There's less skin in the game from a value standpoint between a 3rd and a 5th rounder. If we would go in the 3rd round and get Grayson McCall and come back in the 5th and get Hendon Hooker, then if one outshines the other, it's not a big deal between a 3rd and a 5th rounder. All that said, it's just my opinion on the best possible draft prospects for the Washington football team, to land a franchise quarterback in the draft. And let me know what you guys think we should do. Let me know what you think down below. Is there a quarterback you have your heart set on in the draft? What do you think about my picks? Not flashy enough? You really want those, the Malik Willis, the Matt Corral? Another thing I want to point out is those guys are small, man. They're all smaller than Taylor Heinecke. Like, I'm not going to be surprised if Malik Willis doesn't come out and is 6 foot even, and instead of the 220 he claims, he's more like 210, maybe. But anyway, like I said, let me know what you guys think below. Please remember to subscribe, hit that like. If you watched it this far, I love y'all. Peace.